Search Talk Live with search engine optimization and marketing experts Robert O'Haver and Matt Weber.
But we go and we check out the data and make sure numbers are going in the right direction. Are they ranking for the things they should be ranking for? What kind of, if the agency says they're building links for them, I check out their links. Because as I said, I've done the gamut of SEO and digital marketing for years now, and kind of know what to look for. So everyone on the platform is vetted by me, and I've spoken with every single one of them on the phone, and basically trust that they're a good person. I enjoyed talking with them, and I'd feel comfortable sending someone to them to discuss a potential project.
You mentioned before the show started that you've rejected quite a few agencies and consultants who want to be listed on GetCredo, correct?
I have indeed.
And what are some of the reasons? And can you share with us some of the things that agencies and consultants have maybe done wrong in your eyes based on the feedback that you've gotten? Yeah,
totally. So usually, honestly, it's around link building and around what they do for a client. So I've had a decent number, and honestly, it's a lot of them in the local SEO space. So doing SEO for businesses that have a physical location, like dentists or lawyers or something like that, and doing what we could call gray hat sorts of link building, right? Microsites and building private blog networks and and all of that sort of thing. And I'm not gonna say that stuff doesn't work, but long term, it's not how you build. It's not how you build a company. It's not how you build a brand, and eventually, that's going to become a lot of a risk. And so I'm personally just not okay with that. That's where I draw the line for me. And I'm not okay with, basically sending people there, from my platform, because, that's also my company's reputation there, as you said. So that's the big one. Recently, I've become a lot more about how good are these agencies and consultants at doing sales, simply because when you get a new client in, right, officially, I guess I do lead generation. I don't like the lead generation industry, but I am sending potential clients to agencies and consultants.
Sure.
And they need to be able to close those into clients, right? They're not just paying me for introductions; they're paying me for to basically help them get more clients. And if they're not being successful in that, then I'm basically not holding up. I see it as we're not holding up our end of the bargain. At the end of the day, they're the ones not holding it up because they're the ones not closing them. But I look for people that have sales experience, have a sales process that they can explain to me. They're good on the phone. They're happy to hop on the phone with clients, all of that sort of thing. And that's something I'm actually taking a lot more into account these days.
Very good. So, I think your service is valuable to the fact that there's so many scams out there. Someone going to your site can have a peace of mind for the most part that, they're getting someone legitimate,
Totally. That's the goal. That's exactly why I started it. So I actually started it initially because I was living in Brooklyn. And part of it was I was getting out doing freelance consulting myself at the time. I was working for an agency and basically had too much work and was spending a couple weekends a month in my apartment by myself. And I was single and 28 years old living in Brooklyn, and decided I didn't want to be doing that. But also I was this was end of 2012. So Penguin had just come out, and I had a bunch of friends in New York or New Jersey that owned small businesses that had hired SEO agencies that basically did bad work and got them into trouble with penalties and that sort of thing. And I was so mad. Yeah. I sent Matt Cutts, he never actually responded to this email, but he was the head of web spam at Google at the time, which I'm sure everyone listening to the show right now knows. But I sent him an email and was just so mad and was like, this is ridiculous. Like, these are good businesses that you guys are hurting. And some of them were actually their backlink profile wasn't terrible. Others it was. So basically I set out to I was like, from this point, I am only sending clients, people that come to me that I can't take, to people that I know, that I've vetted, that I trust.
Yeah.
And even to this day, that's what drives me for sure.
Where do you see the industry going? Take other trades people that we interact with in our life, plumbers, electricians. They're bound by building codes. They're bound by licenses. There's inherent standards out there that kind of keep them in check. In our industry, no licenses,
right?
No building codes per se. Where do you see the industry going? Do you see a cross-industry certification, or do you see how does the industry get to self-police itself?
It's a great question. I don't know that I have a great answer for it. People have talked about this off and on for the last, years, and there's always such strong pushback from the industry, and honestly from a lot of the, the veterans that have been in the industry for a lot longer than I have, right? 15, 20 years. They started when it really was the Wild West, right? Now I think we've grown up as an industry, and I think the time could be coming for like a certification of sort. I'm actually seeing more people with like touting. I mean, in the past, people would really tout that they were, Google Analytics certified, that they're AdWords certified, right? I'm seeing more people doing stuff like HubSpot has a certification program, right? So I'm seeing more and more agencies kind of touting that if they have it. So I don't know if we're going to get to the point where, there is that, for everyone, that's like an industry-wide accepted thing that, clients like actually care about and actually look for. But I do think that there needs to be a bit more, transparency around this stuff. Which is part of the reason why I have reviews on agency and consultant profiles on my site, right? I want people to be able to read stuff that they have, that their clients have said about them publicly.
Nice.
Well, let's talk about transparency. How does someone listening to the show know that they're being transparent or not transparent? What's your measure of that? What do you call transparency?
So there are a few things. So some companies take it to an extreme. So basically, transparency is just like, you could say being an open book, right? No question is off the table.
Right.
Some businesses take that to an extreme, right? They make their revenue, completely public. I think of like Buffer and, companies like that. Moz always writes, year-end update. I make Credo revenues public on my own. It's on my personal website. I think it's a good, an interesting thing to show. But yeah, I think there just needs to be more like people actually being able to, lift the hood and take a look at something that, that they previously haven't been able to really look at before. It's something I've thought about a lot more. Like, could I take some of their people that are on Credo, take some of their clients, that they've told me about, and basically and anonymize it and put like traffic, live traffic graphs on their profiles, right? That'd be really cool. I haven't done it yet, but it's definitely something that I've been thinking about, that I've thought about in the past. So there's definitely this concept of, taking a translucent industry like SEO, right? And everyone's asking, what is SEO? How does SEO work? People think it's just like, some magic like SEO pixie dust that you sprinkle on your site, and all of a sudden you get, all the traffic you can handle. I know, right? So I worked inside Zillow for a couple of years, as I said, and their unofficial mantra is power to the people. So this comes from Rich Barton, who also founded Expedia, also founded Glassdoor, and basically he's built a huge career off he's done amazingly well for himself. He's a really nice guy, taking these industries that are completely opaque and blowing them wide open and giving that information back to the consumers, right? So Expedia, travel; Zillow, real estate; Glassdoor, companies, like how are they to work for, salaries, that sort of thing. And honestly, that's left a huge impact on me, and it's definitely something that I can get behind. And it's definitely something that I've been, pushing forward with on Credo. Like I believe you can still see hourly rates for like agencies and consultants that are on the platform. You can see like what they charge per hour, which just previously no one's had that. So I think that sort of information is really valuable.
Robert, you and I were talking just last week about transparency in reporting.
Yeah. And
you and I were talking about how there's still people out there that'll just report total organic traffic growth. And that might be fueled by branded terms, right, which are a layup on that. And the client goes, oh, wow, things are working. But in truth, they're not really ranking for their key non-branded terms.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that as long as you're clear that that is part of the mix, because, that it's definitely misleading if it's not.
Absolutely. Well, and also can definitely be a part of the overall mix and is something to, keep in mind. But, if you're working on one section of their site, and you're reporting these huge gains, but you're not reporting like what traffic has done for this set of keywords or this new section of the site that you're brought on to launch, you're definitely not being completely. You're not being ethical because you're omitting certain things, right?
Right.
You're not being as specific as you should be.
Right. And I think to me that is the key. Like I was saying earlier, if you've made a mistake and you've done something God knows whatever it could be. But as long as you go to the client, I think a client will respect you for being upfront and honest with them. And, hey, I did this, but this is how I fixed it. Something like that, just so that they know. Because, I am a very detailed person when it comes to the work I do for a client. You really have to be that way, because if you don't spell it out, they can't see. A normal client can't go to a website and go, oh, I see what he did, right?
Right. It's not their life to understand what you do.
Right.
Yeah. But I think the faster you go and get the mistake in front of them before they discover it, the better the situation is. You always want to be out in front of and controlling the message.
Right.
And you're a little bit of, everybody who services customers is a little bit of PR person in them, right? It's about managing expectations and managing the messaging. And you hear on television, they always talk about getting out in front of the issue. When you're managing customers, it's the same thing. Get out in front of the issue. Don't get behind it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think part of it as well, guys, is not being afraid to say, I don't know. If a client is asking you about something that you're not, like, it's a brand new development in our industry, or, it's just something that you're not like completely an expert on yet, right? Like schema or something like that, saying like, what, I don't know, but I'm going to go and do the research and find it out. And I'm going to ask, other smart people, about it as well. And I found that just like clients really appreciate that when you're not trying to just like, to sound like everything, and it makes you more human. And honestly, I would say that helps you retain clients better as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just report everything you do, so there's no question. Because I've seen where, like you were saying earlier about where clients get burned by SEO companies because, they're just collecting a check. They're really not doing anything. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, man, if they're doing something, they're not giving the detailed information so that the client really doesn't see it unless they're getting ranking differences or anything. But if you detail that report, you're going to keep clients happy, because they're going to say, okay, this is what I'm paying this guy for,
Right. Yeah.
You're giving them the work you're doing, the time you spend on it. As detailed as possible. Some people
we used to always say when I worked at Distilled in New York City some years ago that one of our internal mantras was communication solves all problems. So if a client isn't happy, hop on the phone and talk to them, right? Don't avoid them. Some people do that. Like, don't avoid them. Like, communicate, talk about it. You may decide to part ways. But like, at least you've discussed it, with them. And often that will save a relationship. Like, when I was working there, I one time, and I learned this years ago, actually, my first job out of college, which was not a marketing position. We had a contract that was a big contract that I was basically like trying to save. And my boss pings me on a Tuesday and he goes, hey, can you come to my office? And he goes, or it was a Friday. And he's like, I need you to book tickets for us to California. We're going to California on Tuesday to meet with this client. And that just left a big impact on me. This is a $500,000 to $1 million a year contract, right?
Yeah.
So we had that in the budget and we could do it. But I did that at Distilled sometimes. There were a couple times that like, the Thursday before I buy plane tickets to fly down to see a client. Because we needed to do something in person, right? Or like the relationship was a little bit rocky and we needed to go save the project.
Sure.
And that happens for whatever reason, sometimes it's no fault of your own. But it's all about that communication, talking to them. Like I don't report the number of hours that I do for clients, simply because that's not the kind of work that I do, right? Like
Sure.
I work with a couple of big clients that are paying me good money, and it's like, it's very strategic, very specialized sort of work. So like, they don't care if I work, 10 hours or 30 hours, for them a month, as long as we're getting it done and they're seeing the results, that's what matters.
Absolutely.
I tell our folks, silence is not golden in our line of work.
Absolutely.
If you feel like that you haven't heard anything from the client, the conclusion is not everything is okay.
Right.
You need to go out and verify it. And I think with some of the employees, the younger millennials coming out of college, they'll look at me and they'll say, well, we just sent them that and we haven't heard back from them. So the ball's in their court. The ball is never in their court.
Right.
The ball is always in our court. It's our responsibility to manage that process to get it over the finish line.
Yes.
Totally.
And I'd like to add to that is the fact that you need to educate your clients, whether it be if it's analytic data you're showing them or anything to do with reporting. All that needs to be done, in the beginning, really. But ongoing, and make sure that if they have questions, answer them. Be there for them.
Yep.
You know. So if they ask you, why are you doing this? You can say, well, this is why I'm doing it, you know.
And John,
Right.
you said something interesting that you have some clients that you don't report hours to. What happens if that client says to you, hey, John, what about a breakdown of the hours that we've received from you? What's your response?
I would show them all the things that we've done. I would show them, emails and that sort of thing. I mean, with my clients, the way that I do it, I've honestly never gotten that question. It's always about like, what are the results and, what are we doing? Like I do document things. I have standing weekly phone calls with all of my clients, and also make sure that I'm talking. I try to get as high up the chain as I can, in the organization, right? So like if I'm working with a senior marketing manager or if I'm working with a marketing manager, I know the senior marketing manager, I know the director, and I probably had an intro to the VP as well. Right. So like I have relationships with all of them. And I'm also helping my point of contact report up the chain and making sure that, their bosses know what's going on, as well. So I haven't gotten that question about like, what hours, have you done? I could say like, these are the things that we're working on. These are the things that have been implemented. These are things that haven't been implemented. These are the conversations I've had about those. So it becomes much more about output, not hours, because at the end of the day, like they're paying us for results, not to just work hours.
Robert, where do you fall on? You got two schools of thought here. We've got reporting deliverables and outcomes, and we've got reporting hours and expenditures on that.
Well, I think he's right. I personally give all that information, but
you give both.
Yeah, I give both. But if there's it's not something you have to do, but I feel comfortable, and I think it makes the client more comfortable if I give them full transparency. This is what I've done. This is the analytics and the results of my work, and move on from there. But, it's perfectly fine to just log it and keep it for yourself. So if that day ever comes where they're going, well, I want a record of what you've done, you have that record.
Yeah, I think it's a particularly relevant discussion relating to SEO, because when you take over a new SEO contract, there's a good chance you're not going to see any measurable outcome in the first month or 60 days of that. As opposed to paid search, 30 days, I ought to see some rapid movement, some rapid results. Yeah. So you feel better when you can say, well, here's where your 30-hour block of time went. It went to this, and this.
Yeah, and I think that's where I got that from, because with SEO, if you don't, and that's why it's important to educate the client up front, because if they think they're going to rank in a week or so or two or whatever it may be, which it happens. Yes. They're going to be like, well, what are you doing? It's month 2 and I don't see anything, or whatever it may be. But if you have that, there's no question there. There's a good relationship there. They know you're working at it, and you continue to show gradual, improvements on their traffic and conversions, that type of thing. But I mean, what would you say, John?
So I think that's a really good point. One thing I've actually been thinking about recently is I should probably be tracking like the time I'm doing for my specific clients, simply so that I personally know where my time is going, right? Because I'm running the software platform and I'm consulting. So like that would help me out a lot there, just sanity wise. But I think some of it also depends on the type of client that it is, right? Like I'm not doing any implementation for my clients, right? Because they have full dev teams, design teams, that sort of thing, right? Like I'm not writing content, I'm not building links, I'm not doing that sort of thing. I'm helping them out with the strategy about how they, build out their teams to do that, or, organize themselves to do it. I'm working directly with developers that are building things out and audit it, and, they audit something and they send it to me, or they build something that that we've prioritized. They build it, they send me the staging site, and then I audit it, from there and say like, yes, it's good to go, or it's not. So I think when we're talking more services, which seems to be what you guys are talking about, right? We spent 10 hours building this. We spent, this amount of budget on this, like that sort of thing. That's very different from a so that's very different from like a strategy, engagement, which is what I do. Right. So I think that might be where a little bit of the disconnect is here.
Yeah.
Well, John, tell us about some of the great customer retention techniques, kind of stories that you've heard by working at GetCredo and talking with the agencies and consultants that are members of GetCredo.com.
Yeah, totally. So One of them, this guy hasn't actually done it yet, but he's on Credo, and he is talking. He told me that he is so he and his business partner also run some conferences, and they are actually talking about running a conference in Hawaii. And they are actually they're going to go and do 2 weeks there in Hawaii. 1 week will be the conference and probably more of like a mastermind thing. But the previous week, they're going to bring all of their clients out to Hawaii.
Oh. Wow.
So basically do a client conference, which I think is super cool. Right. Bring them out to a cool place. And do some, and basically just like let them build community with each other. Right. And discuss things that are, that are challenges to them in their businesses and that sort of thing. It's not going to be like, tell me how I can, build links, or how do I build link to this piece of content? But it's like, how do I build my business through digital? Like, what are the things that we need to do to, whatever. So I think that's super cool. Other things that I've seen are, and so as I said, I used to work at Distilled, and Distilled puts on conferences. Search Love is their maybe their only one now. They previously had Link Love, and that became Search Love as well, back like 2012 or 13. Fantastic shows. Distilled people are great, and they give client discounts to their clients, like pretty heavily discounted tickets, so that the clients can come, and really like interact, with their consultant and with other consultants and with the founders and the VPs and all of that, right? So that's something that clients definitely appreciated there. So yeah, those are a few of the cool things I've seen people do. I've actually been thinking a bit on Credo about things that I could do, in that realm, whether it's like, when I bring on new agencies, sending them all like, Credo t-shirts and, stickers and that sort of thing, right? Like it doesn't have to be like huge and expensive, but just something like that they're like, oh,
they're thinking about
this is
it.
awesome. Yeah, exactly. And it can be completely automated too, is the thing, right? Like you don't have to, spend a ton of time, packaging up t-shirts and stickers to send off to clients. Like you can automate it.
Yeah. One of the simplest things we do that gets the most amount of feedback, as soon as we acquire a new client, they get a letter from me, hand-signed, introducing myself and committing to that I'm available for them, and giving my cell phone number. And that goes in the mail the day we sign the contract on that. And I get a lot of great feedback about that simple step.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And John, that's a really great example of nurturing the clients you have, because, I mean, if you're in a conference like that where you bring in all your clients and you're throwing across ideas, and it usually adds to increased revenue in your company, because everything you're throwing at them or they're throwing at you, obviously this plus this equals,
Well, you hope the client A says, oh, did you know that they're doing this?
Yeah.
For me, to client B, and, then client B says, hey, I just heard you were doing this for client A.
Yeah.
Tell me about that technique or what that is.
Exactly. You can run across, you can do case studies and stuff in front of those clients, and it starts the wheel spinning on, all those clients.
I think we've got time for one more question before the break. And so, John, I want to ask you the opposite. Why do consultants and agencies lose business? What do you see most common?
The most common one, honestly, is that the client doesn't feel valued. They feel like they don't matter to the agency or consultant, that they're just another they're just another client, right? They're another payment that the agency or consultant is getting every month. So this goes back, to communication and, making them feel special. I have seen clients leave agencies when the work was fantastic because they hadn't heard from the agency in like a month, right? Like it's all about retaining clients. It's all about communication. And yes, some of that is reporting, but some of it is just like hopping on the phone with them. Like, I have, as I said, I have standing weekly phone calls with both of my personal consulting clients. I spent the first 10 minutes this morning of one of them chatting with my point of contact. And she told me that she's taking a trip up to Glacier National Park in August. And I was there for 9 days back last August. So we were talking about Glacier National Park, right? And I was giving her some advice on places to go and that sort of thing, right? So like being human like that as well, I think is super important, as opposed to like, hey, it's so-and-so from this agency. Like, you don't know me, right? Like build a relationship with your clients. That's hard to do when you have a ton of clients. That's part of why I keep my own load low and always have. But if you have 2 or 3 clients, there is no excuse for not talking to them, on the phone at least once every 2 weeks. And you should definitely be communicating with them more often on email as well.
And that's a tough evaluation for some folks in this business, because you've got some folks that are technically really competent.
Yeah.
But they have to kind of look in the mirror there sometimes and say, what is that rapport building and that relationship building, is that really my genius? And, as Jack Welch said, if it's not your genius, it's not your job. And even if you're technically brilliant and technically competent, the inability to build rapport and build relationships could be a severe drag on your growth as a consultant or an agency.
Yeah.
No matter how technically competent you are.
Absolutely.
100%.
All right. Well, we got to take a break for our sponsor. Hold on for a minute.
Search Talk Live is sponsored by the Robert Palmer family of companies. Check out robertpalmercompanies.com for more information.
Find the true value of your home when you log on. Homevalue.com.
Get your questions in on Twitter. Type hashtag Search Talk Live and your question. Now back to the show.
All right. Well, our other co-host, Michelle Stenson Ross, asked me to mention to everybody, today's the last day to register to see STL co-host Michelle Stenson Ross live at the Rock Digital Conference in Dallas at the end of this month, which is at the end of this month. She's going to tweet out, or you can get her at MSTINSONROSS on Twitter. And she'll be tweeting out her code, I believe, to get you the discount if you want to go to that conference. It's a really great conference. And Michelle, who's speaking at the conference? Keith Good and yourself? That should be plenty of reason right there, right?
Just and $75.
Exactly.
Save $75.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's get on with the show, John. I'm sorry about that. Where are we at here? Sorry.
We were talking about relationship building, and John was sharing with us some of the things that he's seen gone wrong in consultants and agencies, and talking about that inability to communicate and that inability to build relationships. So, John, I want to ask you again from the GetCredo.com standpoint of, you've had the ability to talk to agencies, consultants, and get some sense of directly how they interact with their customers. Are there any one or two techniques that kind of stand out to you to keep that communication line open? And I'll ask kind of specifically in terms of tools. Do you find that the successful agencies and consultants on GetCredo.com tend to use the same tools, or have a particular tool that they favor?
That's a great question. I would say that there isn't any one tool that they favor. The ones that I found, especially around like project management and communications, so going back to what y'all were talking about earlier about what you're doing for them. It is best if you can get it out of email, get communication out of email, so more people on the team can see it, and get it in somewhere else. So the most common ones that I see it's the main 3 project management tools, right? Is Basecamp. So Simple Tiger is one of the agencies on my platform. They're fantastic agency. And they use Basecamp. They have a side business building like Squarespace websites for people. And I actually got them to build a Squarespace website for my mother-in-law, who's so that's how much I trust these guys. But they use Basecamp to manage all that client communication. I personally use Trello. Full disclosure, my wife works for Trello, but I've used Trello for a really long time. I use Trello to keep myself sane, and then also the clients can, log in and see. And that also for my own software business, I use Trello to manage everything. And then Asana is the other one. But I would say the main 2 are Trello and Basecamp. Are the 2 that I see the most often them using for project management, especially at agencies, right? Like I'm a solo consultant, and so no one else. I don't farm any of the work out to anyone. So Trello works really well. But if you have multiple people coming in on it, and you need to have multiple threads and that sort of thing, or comments about different tasks going on, that's fantastic. Another one actually is Slack. So I'm on Slack with actually not both of my clients, one of my clients. And they have a specific SEO room. They don't have a full-time SEO manager, but they have a specific SEO channel within Slack that I'm in there, and chatted with the CTO in the Slack channel about SEO before, right?
Nice.
Like that, I'm kind of, I've stepped in that role for them, to help them out with search. Basically like communicate in whatever way you can. And those are some of the tools that I've seen used that work really well. I spoke with another agency today that actually has a proprietary system that they built out.
Wow.
At their agency, but they do a lot of link acquisition for their clients, and their clients can log in and see all the links that they have that they've acquired for them, over the different months, and they're pulling in data from different APIs and from all the different major link indices, I guess is the proper word. But they give that full transparency to their clients.
I think your point about training applies to those tools too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we use Teamwork. We migrated from Basecamp, but we also did a little series of Camtasia videos for the clients, because I think we have this assumption that everybody uses the same tools that we do in our world.
Right.
So you tell a client, hey, great, we use Teamwork and here's your login. And they go, okay,
what?
Great.
Yeah.
So now we say, hey, fantastic, we use Teamwork. Here's what you can expect out of it. And, watch these 3 quick videos on how to get files that you can look at and review, et cetera. Because if you don't train them and indoctrinate them in it, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to step out of Teamwork.
Yep.
And they're going to start emailing you. And all of a sudden you're emailing files back and forth. And now all of a sudden the advantage of Teamwork is lost.
Yeah. And it's convenient.
This is actually one thing that building a product has also taught me is, onboarding is super, super important. And actually onboarding is something I'm going to be focusing on more on my software platform. But onboarding is with clients is insanely important, right? And things like you're talking about, having tutorial videos, or, I've seen some agencies have drip email campaigns. Mm-hmm. That go out to their clients, like, these are the different things that, these are different tools that we use, and, this is when we'll be reporting and all of that. Even though they've gone over that on the introductory phone calls, they still send it out so it's in writing somewhere, and they can refer back to it and be like, oh, wait, what was that thing again? How do I use that? They can go back, find it in their email, and go from there, not have to email you asking if you can resend that link.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody who's listening to the show that is in the web dev side, set that up right away. We do it as soon as your site launches. You get a sequence of 7 drip emails that pretty much, reconfirm the things that we've already told you. Some basic WordPress stuff. It's a WordPress stuff. If it's an ASP.NET site, we tell you where your instructions are.
Nice.
Remind you that we set up your Google Analytics account and remind you how to get that. Because you know what's going to happen. They're going to call you and ask you anyway. So why not just send them that in an email? You know what questions you're going to get. It's a given.
Sure.
Go ahead and answer them in a drip sequence.
Yeah, and that's great to add, like you were saying, the videos and all that stuff. Just totally educate them, and it doesn't take a person to do that.
Right. Anybody who's listening to the show who has built websites for people can right now write down 6 questions that you're going to get right after the site launches. Where's the admin area again? How do I change that?
Right.
No, not that button. No.
Don't ever do this.
Oh, I didn't know you had access to that. Whoops.
Yeah. Right.
How did you delete that install? Oh, yeah.
All right. So what do we want to talk about next?
Tell us where you think Credo's going. John, what do you see for the future of Credo? Can you tell us some secrets? What do you got planned?
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit. So for the last few months, what I have been 100% focused on, well, first of all, Credo is myself. I have a part-time WordPress developer. The whole platform is built on WordPress. And I built all the front end. And then I have a developer that does a bunch of like back end stuff, like incrementing contact numbers and that sort of thing, like the non-sexy stuff that actually makes the system work. And then I have a part-time account manager as well, who basically, when a project's created on the platform, he follows up with them, finds out a bit more, and then either makes direct introductions to agencies or consultants, or sets the project live on the platform, and agencies and consultants can log in, take a look at it, and contact them through the platform. So I'm not trying to go for huge scale. I'm not trying to go for huge automated scale either. I think that there is a need in the industry for this high touch. I've proven out that there is a need in the industry for this high touch sort of approach. And so that's really what we're doubling down on, and making sure that these projects, these people looking to hire someone, get to the right agency or consultant, not just an agency or consultant. So I'm actually being I'm purposefully pumping the brakes on growth, and I can only grow it as I have projects on the platform, right?
Yeah.
So my focus for the last couple of months has been on actually generating new projects on the platform, and seeing a lot of progress forward on that. Right now, we're sending anywhere from, depending on the month, right? It's a seasonal business, we're sending anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000 worth of work to agencies and consultants every month. So pretty proud of that. It took me 12 months to reach the first million, and then right now it's around every like 3-ish months. So that's pretty awesome to see the growth. And so I've been concentrating on that, just generating more projects, more high quality projects on the platform. And then also going to be working on, making sure agencies and consultants are happy and that, they're sticking around and they're closing projects and all of that. So, I don't see this reaching 1,000 agencies and consultants. Right now we have, 65 to 70 on there. And I can see it reaching 150, 200 as we have, the projects to service it. But, at this point, that it's grown well, and I'm not trying to grow a huge business, and I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to grow like, a thumbtack or something like that, right? Like they're playing such a scale game and the venture back game and all of that. My system is complete. My company is completely bootstrapped. And I really enjoy the challenges that come with that. So there's going to be a lot more, there's going to be more agencies coming on. I'm going to be working on a lot more, content, especially helping agencies and consultants sell better projects, right? So I'm actually working on like a sales course that people that are on the platform will get for free, and then I'll probably sell it as like a premium product, to people that are not on the platform.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for just a second. What do you see going wrong? Why don't consultants and agencies sell better? What are they doing wrong?
They don't follow up. They send a contact and they never send a follow-up email. They never try to get them on the phone. That is the biggest thing that I see. I've had people come back to me and be like, I need more leads. I'm like, well, I've sent you 20 in the last 3 months. Yeah, as an example, I've sent you 20 in the last 3 months. Have you closed any of them? No. Okay. Why not?
Wow.
Have you followed up with them? No. I'm like, wow. Like you just, you wasted all 20 of those contacts right there. You're telling me you need more? You don't need more. You need a better system. Yeah. So that is 100% the number one thing I see. They don't follow up and even like get the chance to pitch the business. So actually on Credo, when an agency contacts, someone that's created a project on the platform, I send them I send the agency a confirmation email. I also give them the email address and phone number, so they can literally click, like pull up that email on their phone, click the phone number and call them right then and there. And guess what? The ones that are closing a lot of business are the ones that are doing that.
And so, do you think they don't follow up because the average consultant and agency thinks that the sale is easier than it really is? They think that the sale should fall in their lap? Yeah,
probably.
It's millennials. I'm just kidding.
Well, not even. There are some for sure. And some just have no sales background. Like I spent a summer selling Cutco knives when I was in high school. Right. So like I've done sales before, I've sold a lot of digital marketing projects, because I've done a lot of marketing consulting myself. But there are a lot of people that have zero sales background. And so, that's definitely something that I see, hurting our industry right there. So yeah, I think that's definitely part of it, and some people, will be like, I want to get like direct warm introductions from you and, 2 projects that want to sign with me. And I don't want you to send it to anybody else. I only want to pay you $100 a month. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like you pay, you get what you pay for. Right.
Yeah.
There's, there those mismanaged expectations, as well, sometimes. So, it's not, closing work it's not super hard, but if you don't do the basics right, like you're going to have a really hard time closing work, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. I would have to say it's really hard to find a good salesperson for, SEO or something like that, because you have to educate them before they can educate the client.
Right.
And it's not as easy said. It's easier said than done.
And for the consultants and the agencies, they probably are not doing what we're on the show working with them to do for their clients, which is understanding what is your cost per lead, what is your cost per sale on that. Now you got to reverse it a little bit, and you got to think about the same thing for yourself,
right?
As an agency and as a consultant. What is your cost per sale? If I handed you a sale tomorrow, what's it worth to you from a revenue standpoint, right? And if you don't know that number, then all of this downstream is going to get a lot murkier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to ask potential agencies, if I send you a potential client, if I send you an introduction tomorrow and you have their email address and phone number, what are you going to do? And give me an example. It's kind of a job interview, right? But someone would be like, oh, I'll shoot him an email and I'll add him to my CRM. I'm like, nope, wrong. Like, you have the phone number, you're picking up the phone and you're calling them. Yeah. But you're totally right on the sales side as well. One of the best salespeople I've ever worked with was Ron, who was our sales exec at Distilled New York City. And he had no background in digital marketing when he started, but he was great about asking for 15 minutes of my time to go over what a client could need, or 15 minutes of another, senior consultant's time. And then over time, like I remember a few months in, I turned around, this was like 2011, 2012. And he had just gotten off a phone call. I sat right next to him, so I kind of, overheard the call. And I look and I kind of turned to my left and look towards him because I was going to ask him a question. And I see that he has Open Site Explorer pulled up and he's actually looking at their links to figure out what they need because they told him that they had a traffic drop. So I was like, and I was so proud of him. I'm like, nice. Dude, you're actually like taking a look at this stuff. And he figured out over time, how are we looking at links, looking at their site, taking a look at like their on-page optimization. Like he could do all of that. Like he could have gone and done SEO for clients or for his own stuff if he wanted to, after being a sales exec for a couple of years.
That's
and he ended up running
individual.
the office for a couple of years.
Yeah, that's a keeper
totally.
right there.
Guess what? He was so successful in doing it. And I give him major props to this day for doing it because most don't.
And it's so important because I've seen time and time again where a sales rep will go out and promise the moon.
Yeah.
You're going to be ranking next week,
Yeah, you're going to be ranking number one, guaranteed.
Yeah.
I think one of your other questions for qualifying agencies would be, do you use any of that contact management software? Because how many contact forms do you get on your own website that say, hi, I'm Joe from Agency X, and I noticed your website's not ranking well on Google. It's attractive in design, but it's not ranking well. Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, I get offered SEO all the time.
Yeah. Have you ever read the blog post from Google where they post the solicitations that they get at google.com? Like they get those same forms. Like, dear google.com, we noticed that your website's attractive, but not ranking well on Google.
Yeah, Gary and Matt tell me all the time that they get these emails, or I'm just like, these guys work at Google. Come on now.
Yeah, what are you guys doing? That's absolutely hilarious. But I think it brings up a good point as well, though, with agencies and selling better work, in that you also need to have an understanding of who your best clients are and who you do the best work for, right? So like I said at the very beginning, I'm an SEO. I'm a software entrepreneur, but I'm also an SEO consultant to large websites, not large companies necessarily, but large websites, 1 million+ pages. So someone comes to me and I know like that's who I want to work with. Mm-hmm. So someone comes to me that they have a small, B2B SaaS platform or something like that. Like, sure, I can do that, but that's not the kind of consulting that I personally want to be doing. Yeah. I can send them on to my platform that I own, but, also being willing to say no, and like, this isn't a good fit. And yes, sometimes you do just, you need to make some revenue and all that, but you also need to understand that that person's probably going to churn out and they're not going to be a successful project for you. Yeah. We're playing the long game here, not the short game, but I think defining what kind of work you do, and who you do it for, are the major things. Cause then you can go after those specific clients with your own like agency marketing, right? And then you're not getting the salespeople, hopefully going and selling these projects to sites that you have no business working on, in an industry that you know nothing about. You guys get it, but I think that's an important part there that honestly a lot of agencies and consultants look over. They're like, I do all the services for anyone. And then my question is, well, why should someone hire you then, right? And if they say I'm cheaper, then you're just playing a race to the bottom, and you're playing a race to be out of business. Yeah,
and this clients are either hot or cold. You have nightmare clients and you have your good clients. There's nothing really in between. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Probably the toughest judgment for a consultant to make is what business not to take.
Exactly. And you sometimes do have to walk away.
Yep, absolutely. And it's funny. I don't know if you guys have read Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Work Week, but he talks about, kind of the 80-20 there. He talks about how he realized that he had a lot of people basically buying like supplements from, I think it was his business at the time. But they were making like 80 to 90% of their revenue from his top 3 clients, and 80 to 90% of the support was going to the others that were making up only 10% of his revenue. So he
Classic
cut out
80/20.
he cut out all of those. He cut out all of those, and guess what? His stress went way down. His team stress went way down, and his business was wildly more profitable.
Yeah, and most agency owners or people that are pulling in clients have pretty good radar for that stuff. I mean, you got to, because if you see trouble, if it's trouble now, it's probably going to be trouble down the road. You know.
Definitely.
Got to develop the spidey sense.
Definitely. And we all have to take our knocks. We all learn those hard lessons, but hopefully you do learn from those.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think it's time for Believe It or Leave It.
All right, John, we've got 3 statements that we found somewhere on the internet, and we're simply going to ask you to tell our listeners whether they should believe it or whether they should leave it. Robert, why don't you take the first one?
All right. Google will send MCC AdWords performance reports directly to the client.
What do you think, John?
Boy, that's a tough question. I don't have much AdWords experience. I would say, I'm going to nuance it. I would say believe it that that they will do that, but leave it in terms of trusting their numbers. Trust your agency instead.
Interesting. I have a tendency to believe that, given how they're kind of migrating the Google Partner Program and some of the things they're doing to keep tabs. Okay, here's number 2, John. This is going to be right down your alley. SaaS-based dashboard applications will be the hot trend in 2018 for agencies and consultants to keep customers connected.
Leave it. People have been saying that for a long time, and none of the dashboarding companies are really any good. So I would say leave it.
Yeah, it's been a hot
agencies
topic.
need to build out their own reporting within analytics and those places.
Wow, interesting.
All right. Number 3, Facebook is going to establish an agency certification program.
I'd believe that for sure.
Yeah, that would.
It would totally make sense. I mean, they already have like account managers and such, so it would totally make sense.
Yeah, I can see that coming as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think one of them, Google, Facebook, somebody's going to step forward and try to be the leader in the agency validation game, I'll call it.
You know, we have Gary coming on the show in 2 weeks, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks. I want to ask him about that because we were talking about earlier about SEO certification, stuff like that. I understand why they wouldn't do that, but I really think that there needs to be some kind of validation for those people that are legitimate, you know?
Right. Yeah, and it's oftentimes I can see Google's challenge is they have trouble connecting the dots as to who did what.
Right.
So you see what went wrong on the website, but you don't know exactly who did it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it'd be hard to scale too.
Yes, but sorely needed in our agency. You know, if you think about what's happening in the payment card industry where they were facing government regulation and they decided to have their own certification program with the PCI standards, you know, I sense that our industry is kind of headed the same way if we don't clean up our own act and get the bad guys out of the business.
I mean, it could be similar to the Google partnership with paid. Like, they trust you there. Why can't they trust you on the other
or
side?
a platform like Credo, where maybe the clients who are on Credo, they go and they rate the work that this agency has done, so I can see appraisals that this agency or consultant's done.
Right.
Yep,
Absolutely.
that's definitely something I've thought about, and something I plan to get more granular on is reviews and how they are on client management and results they got and that sort of thing, which would be cool. I do just want to say real quickly that I do think that our industry has cleaned up a lot in the last 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
It's heading in the right direction for sure.
Night and
Needs
day.
more, but it's heading in the right direction.
And I think that's due to the education sophistication of the buyers.
Yeah.
And not as much related to what the sellers of SEO services have done. The SEO sellers have done improvements. They've migrated. But really what you see happening is that buyers becoming more sophisticated.
And I also think that with Google cleaning up their algorithms and stuff like that, these charlatans that say they're expert SEOs and stuff like that are getting people penalties and all kinds of stuff. And then they finally just, you know, they're not ranking sites anymore. They're just like,
right.
I'm done, you know, because they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, I mean, I think there'll become a time when there's a level where Google says, okay, I think we've got algorithms good, you know, here's the people that are still around and surviving and doing well with SEO, and, you know, and maybe they'll come up with some kind of...
Yeah, I think if you look in context, and Robert, you've been in the industry for a long time, fortunately, it is much harder today to be an SEO bad guy than it was 5 years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
It's much harder to be a bad guy. They're still out there.
There's a lot of know-it-alls.
Yeah, so that's a different kind of bad guy.
Yeah.
But it's much harder to be an SEO bad guy today than it was 5 years ago. It takes a lot of effort to be an SEO bad guy today.
Yeah.
It really does. You're right.
And when you find them, you say, listen, if you would have done half that effort on doing it the right way, you would have gotten so much more results. And we just recently took over an account where the agency had built this portfolio of incredibly bad backlinks. And, some of them had to be difficult to acquire. Some of them they bought, but some of them had to be difficult to acquire. And I'm thinking, if you would have just spent that same time and effort acquiring good links, you'd still have the client, and I wouldn't have the client.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, man. Well, I think we're getting close to being out of time here. I want to thank you for being on the show. If you guys want to go visit John's website, GetCredo.com, check out his platform. I think you will find it very interesting. If you're an agency, definitely try to get on the platform. I know we talked about this before the show, but he doesn't accept everyone. You have to be on your game.
Yeah. And John, can you squeeze in very quickly as we're running out of time? What is your Search Talk Live tattoo that you want to offer to our listeners? What's your best, most compelling advice to keep clients? What's the tattoo?
To keep clients, I would have to go back to communication solves all problems.
All right, that's the tattoo.
Talk to your clients. That's the number one way.
Communication solves all problems. That's the tattoo.
I think they'll put that on my right forearm.
Well, you are running out of space. That's your challenge, Robert. You're running out of space. That's a lot of ink, brother.
Yeah. I don't have any tattoos. All right, John. Well, I want to thank you for being on the show. It's great. It's been great speaking with you. And thank you for sharing your wonderful wisdom with us and our listeners. And maybe we can have you back another time.
I would love to. Thank you guys for having me. It's been absolutely a pleasure.
Awesome.
Great talking to you, John.
All right, guys. It's been another great episode of Search Talk Live. I want to thank everyone for being a listener. We are hitting amazing numbers. I got contacted from a guy in Poland. So there's another country that we are being listened to now.
Wow.
We've got Australia. We're in England. People are listening to us all over. And you know what amazes me? Terrestrial radio does not have that kind of reach.
Right.
So a podcast, if you're a business out there and you're wanting to, if you're an expert in some kind of authority or in your field, a podcast is just amazing.
Unlimited potential.
Yes. I had no clue we would get as many people listening to this show as we have now. It's quite amazing. But if you like the show and you've listened to it for the first time, go to searchtalklive.com. You can get previous episodes. You can go to Spreaker, which is SPREAKER.com, and listen to, I think we're up to like 90 podcasts now. Don't listen to the first 5 because they suck. No, actually, I think I deleted those. But there is our guest list is amazing. Anybody that's an authority in the industry, whether it be paid search or organic, they're on that list. And we've got some amazing guests coming up. Like I said, we have Gary Ilias from Google going to be on here. So we got tons of questions for him.
And next week, a special show for people in the B2B space.
Yeah, what is that?
It is Garrett McGruth at Directive Consulting talking about how to expand your B2B content marketing and drive more leads.
There we go. I know a lot of people that can gain from that. So thanks again, guys, for your support, being on the show. How much time we got? 1 minute. Okay. Like I said, sign up for our newsletter on our website, searchtalklive.com. You can get the previous episodes. Follow us on Twitter. You can follow you where?
At Best Web Design FL.
And I am at Robert O'Haver. And follow us on Search Talk Live, obviously, at Search Talk Live. Get in your questions all during the week. For Gary, I will be putting them down. Email them to me if you like, because I really want to get all the questions in that people are wanting to know.
And that shows July 11th for those keeping on their calendar.
Absolutely. Thanks again for your support. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Search Talk Live is sponsored by the Robert Palmer family of companies.
Find the true value of your home when you log on. HomeValue.com.
If you have questions for Search Talk Live, or you're interested in being a guest or a sponsor of the show, email Robert at searchtalklive.com. That's searchtalklive.com.